Hi there, thank you for watching this video. So in this video I've been investigating what is Phar like as a packager for a PHP app. So what I'd like to do in this video is to develop an app using PHP, but rather than having that hosted on a website, I'd like to run that locally on my computer. But as well as that, I'd like the actual executable itself to be in a format that is easy to distribute to other users so that they can run it as well on their Windows systems. So rather than having to perhaps deliver the actual application in the forms of lots of folders with lots of different files, I like the whole thing to be in one file and to be able to just email it to them in one very neat package. So I'm trying to find out how feasible is that. So here's my very basic PHP app. So it's written on the in PHP, and it's run from the local host, which is my local computer at the port number 8000, and it's called index.php. And all it does is it displays hello world like that with an image of a cup, and it says click me. So I click on the button which says click me, and it says hello again. And so what it does is that if we look at the source code, it's a very basic PHP program that just first of all checks to see whether there are any get variables or HTML variables in the URL, and if it has the opt variable and if it's set to be, then it just echoes hello world again, and otherwise it displays the HTML code for the page. And in the HTML code for the page, it contains a script tag section, and in the script tag section it has a function that is called click me. And so when the user clicks on the button, then it creates an AJAX object, and it sends a post to that localhost port 8000 with the opt equals b as the URL variable. And so on the actual receipt of the response back from the post, it checks to see whether the word hello in uppercase exists in the response text, and if it does, then it simply alerts hello again. And so if we just rerun that, I'll just do a refresh on the page, and I just click on the button, and it checks for the word hello, and it finds it, and it alerts hello again. So it's a very basic PHP app, but what it does make use of is AJAX. It calls itself back via AJAX on an AJAX post to itself. So I want to see whether it's possible to replicate all these functionalities within a Phar file, PHAR file, a PHP archive file. Whether it's possible to have this functionality whereby we have this local web server as well, because at the moment I'm running the command which is php minus capital S and then localhost and then colon and 8000 minus t and then dot /. So this creates a local server on the current directory where that index.php is located. So I want to see whether this is possible to package this up all in one file and to distribute it to users. So first of all, I need to check to see whether Phar, PHAR, is installed as a package or an extension inside PHP. And so for that I can check by running the command php-m and then pipe to grep, and then grep for the word Phar in upper lowercase like that to see whether it returns anything. It doesn't, so I just do a php -m without the pipe to a grep, and I'll just check. So I've got a pretty basic installation of PHP here. We've got the core PHP, but we don't have the Phar module in it. So I'll just see which version it is. So this is 7.3.7. So I think what I'd like to do is perhaps to use a later version of PHP from the PHP website. So if I were to download it directly from the php.net website, perhaps it'll contain greater variety of packages and extensions that comes with it. So here is the php.net website, so I just click on the download link like that, and I'll click on Windows Downloads because I'm developing this inside Windows, and I'll just click on the zip link to download. So I've got a choice here of the VS1664 non-thread safe or thread safe. So it says here on the left hand side that if we're using the IIS, which is the Internet Service known as Internet Information Services that is provided normally inside, let's say, Windows, then it's saying here that one should use the non-thread safe NTS version of PHP, whereas if we were using Apache, then it's saying that we should use the thread safe. So Depending on whether you're using the Windows web server, then you should be using the non-thread safe version. Whereas if you're not using the Windows web server, then it's saying that if you're using Apache, then it should be thread safe. So I think I'll select the thread safe version, which is this one here, and I'll just click on the zip file to download it, like that, and it's 30 megabytes zip file. So here's the zip file. So I'll just select everything in the zip file, and I've created a new folder underneath C drive, and I'll just paste inside the new folder like that. And there it is. And so because this is PHP version 8.3.11, I'll just rename this new folder to PHP 8.3.11. And there it is. So if I now navigate to PHP 8.3.11 and I do a PHP -m and do a grep for PHAR or Phar, okay, so it exists. So if we do a PHP -m, then it shows that we do have the Phar installed, and as well as that, I've changed the settings inside my bash run command file so that it prepends the path to the C/PHP 8.3.11 in front of the $path, so that if I now do a which PHP, it picks up the latest PHP, which is the one inside the folder, which is PHP 8.3.11. So now if we go back inside the file that we had originally, which was the index.php, like this, and if we take a look, so what we want to do is that when we have this file here, is we want to be able to, inside the PHP section, to require the .phar file, like that. So we have something like my phar, and then .phfar, like that. So this is how we can include the phar file by using this require statement. And so the question arises, given that we need to have this .phar file, what do we include in that phar file? Well, what we can do is that we can just include the rest of the PHP section inside that file. So I'll do that now. I'll just go and select that entire section underneath, like that. And I'll just write it to myphar.phar, like that. And I'll just delete the rest, like that. So I'll just check that as regards myphar.phar, it exists, like that. And yes, it does. But actually, for the time being, because we haven't generated the phar file yet, what I'll do is that I'll just rename it to myphar.php, like that. And as well as that, I'll just rename the myphar.phar to myphar.php, because we need to generate the .phar file from the PHP file using a special method. So I'll show that in a minute. But what we can do now is that we can just test this file. So if we now do a PHP -s, the localhost port 8000, and then -t for the location of the root, which is the current directory, so that the server is now running locally. So I'll just do a refresh on the web page here, which is localhost port 8000 index.php. Okay, and the reason why we're getting that line at the very top there saying if brackets $_gets is because if we go back to the code and look at my phar, and because it's a PHP file at the moment, it hasn't been turned into a .phar file yet. We need to insert the opening PHP tag, like that, and the close angle brackets, like that. So if we save that now and restart the server again as well, and press F5 on the web page, so here we have the actual page again. It's now displaying the page without any problems, without any issues. And if I click on the click me button, and it's working fine, it's making a call on itself and it's returning the correct value. So everything's working fine. So I think we can now create a .phar file from this PHP file, or from this PHP application. So I'll just Control C on the web server. So first of all, I'd just like to display what it is that we are going to archive, because Phar, P-H-A-R, stands for PHP archive. So we want to archive the actual code in this project directory, in this project folder. over here, which are these files here, and then we also want to archive the actual assets inside the image folder, the img folder, and it just contains the one png file here. So these are the files that we want to archive using Phar. And so the way we do that is that we need to create a separate PHP script to do that. So we can call this make my Phar, like that. So as usual, we need to just create the PHP start tag and the end tag for the PHP section, and then we can add a statement saying $phar equals new Phar. So this will create the new Phar archive, and so we'll call this myphar.phar, like that. myphar.phar. If we go to the php.net website, then we can find out the details of this constructor or object initialization syntax. So the first parameter is the file name, which is myphar.phar. The second parameter, which is 0, are the flags. And the third parameter is the alias. So that's how we instantiate a Phar object inside PHP. And then after that, we need to add the files to this archive. So with this Phar object, we'll need to build from directory. So we need to build from the img directory, which is just underneath the current directory, like that. So the __ dir __ is the current directory. And so the img directory is just underneath, and as well as that, we need to include the files from within the current directory, like that. And we want to save the archive, and we save the archive by running the method which is stop buffering, like that. And so if we just save this now and then run it, php space make myphar.php, and now if we do an ls-l, so here we have the new Phar file, the new PHP archive file that was just created. So to test that everything has been archived successfully, and so that I can run it without any issues, what I'll do is that I'll just create a totally new directory, and I'll call it something like today's date, like that. And then I'll copy the new Phar file into that directory, like that. So it's called myphar.phar into this folder, and there we are. And so to run this, we'll need to create an index.php for this. And then once we have that index.php or equivalent PHP homepage for this Phar file, then we can start up the local server on the local computer and run it as we would normally for a PHP on the local computer. So I'll just create the index.php as if I were creating a normal home page for a website or for an app, which this is. And then inside the body section, I can add in the PHP section, like that, and I can require the Phar file. So it's called myphar.phar, like that. And I'll save that. And so, will this work? Well, we'll find out in a minute. So at the moment, in this folder, which has got two files, the index.php and the myphar.phar, and the index.php requires myphar.phar. So if I now run this as a local server, like that, on port 8000 -T, the root is at the current directory, like that. And once again, if I point the browser to the same URL, localhost :8000/index.php. Now everything seems to work fine, but we don't have the image. So when I click on the Click Me button, it's calling back on itself and it's coming back with the correct value, hello again, and everything's working fine except for the image not displaying. And the reason why this is because even though we can archive images and web assets into the Phar file, the PHP archive file, and even though we can run the PHP code from within the Phar file, unfortunately, we won't be able to reference the non-PHP files from within the archive file. We will need to extract them back onto the actual file system and then have the PHP code inside the Phar file locate those assets from within the main computer file system. So that is what we need to do. When we first run this PHP file, we will need to extract the image asset. So I'll just do that now. So I'll just Control-C on the web server, and I'll just go back into the index.php like that. And so that is the required myphar.phar. And so once again, we'll need to instantiate a new Phar object from the Phar file, which is called myphar.phar, like that. And then once that's been instantiated, we'll need to extract the image files. So we can extract files individually by name by using the extract to method. So we extract to the current directory under which there is a subfolder, and we'll give that subfolder name a /image, and we'll extract the image that has the file name guest or cupguest.png like that. So this extracts just one file, the cupguest.png image file from the Phar file, like that. And so I'll just save this, and I'll restart the local server, like that. So currently, inside the current directory, we have these two files. So now if I were to go back to the browser and do a refresh by pressing F5, so now it's found the image file, and if I go back to that file explorer, here it's created the folder and it's extracted the image file inside this folder. And so now if I just press F5 again to refresh the page, like that, everything's looking fine. Supposing we wish to distribute this PHP app to other users on other computers, how do we go about doing it? Well, first of all, they need to have PHP installed on their computers. So I would say that they need to have the same version of PHP as was used in order to generate this .phar file. And once we've done that, then we need to send them these two files here, the myphar.phar and as well as that the index.php. But as well as that, they'll need to be able to start their own PHP web server on their local machines using the PHP that has been installed on their local machines. So how can they go about doing that? So if they're not expert users of PHP, what we can do is that we can create batch scripts or Windows command scripts for them to run in order to start the PHP web server on their local computers. So we can do that, for example, by just going inside Notepad, creating a new Notepad file, and we can call it something like step1.bat, like that. And then we can edit step1.bat. So we can say echo off, because this is written in Windows batch script. So what it does is that it echoes every command onto the terminal. So if we don't want that to happen, we can just say the @ echo off, and then we can just say wherever they've got the PHP installed, we can just say run that PHP from wherever they have installed that PHP with the option -S for the server to start a local server on their local machine, and then port 8000 and then -T to set the root directory of that web server to be the current folder where they're in. So if we just save that, and if we just run that by double-clicking on it, step1.bat, so here it is. So here is the web server that is currently running, and after that we need to point the browser at that. So what we can do for the browser is that we just create a new HTML file, once again using Notepad, and we can call it step2.html, like that, and then we can edit this step2.html inside Notepad. So what we want this to do is that we want to redirect the browser to the actual local host at port 8000. So we can do that using a meta tag. So inside the head section of the web page, we can say meta http-equiv equals, and double quotes, refresh, and then double quotes, and content equals double quotes 0 for 0 seconds. We want this to direct immediately to the localhost port 8000. URL equals http://localhost:8000/ double quotes, and then the / and then close angle brackets, and then we can save this file after adding the close tags for head and HTML. And so now if we just look at the terminal, this is telling us that the local web server is running. So now if we go back to the Explorer and then double click on the step2.html, so that takes us immediately to localhost :8000. And if we click on the Click Me button, it's working fine as well. So in terms of which files we need to distribute to users to run on their local computers, we can just distribute these 4 files like that. We can just select them and then send them to a zip folder like that. Like that. So they can just extract these 4 files onto a folder on their local machines and then click on step 1 and then step 2. But for this, they will need to have installed PHP version 8.3.11 inside the folder that is mentioned specifically inside step1.bat, which is they need to have downloaded the zip file for the PHP 8.3.11 and extracted the contents of that zip file into the folder at c://php 8.3.11. Regarding the size of the PHP 8.3.11 itself, the actual zip file that was downloaded from the website is just about 31 megabytes in size, so that is quite tiny actually for the actual entire PHP software that we need in order to develop a fully fledged PHP website. And once extracted into the folder, the entire contents is just about 84 megabytes in size. So what we can do is that if the users do not have the actual PHP 8.3.11 installed on their local machines, then we can actually distribute the zip file together with instructions on how to extract and install PHP from the zip file. Just a matter of just double-clicking on the zip file, selecting the contents of the entire zip file and just pasting into an empty folder. That's all it is. And then renaming that folder as c://php 8.3.11 in order to get this particular PHP app to run on their local machine using the local web server. So that's about it for this video. I hope you found it useful and informative. Thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, share and like. Until next time, look after yourself and have a nice day.